There's a pattern that has destroyed every major empire in history. Not conquest, not invasion, not revolution, not economic collapse. Specifically, currency collapse. And it happens the exact same way every single time. Rome, the empire that ruled the known world for 5 centuries, collapsed when its currency became worthless. Spain, which controlled more gold and silver than any nation in history, went bankrupt repeatedly until its empire dissolved. Britain, which dominated global trade for 200 years, lost its empire within a decade after its currency collapsed. For times in recorded history, a dominant empire has followed this exact pattern. Military overextension, unsustainable spending, currency debasement or money printing, inflation, loss of confidence, collapse. And every time the people in power believed they were different, that their empire was special, they were wrong every single time. And right now in 2025, the United States is following that exact same pattern, step by step. The only question is whether we're near the beginning, the middle, or the end. This is the story of how empires destroy themselves through their own currency. Let's start with Rome, the empire that dominated Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East for over 500 years. At its peak, Rome controlled 60 million people across 3 continents. Its military was unmatched. Its currency, the denarius, was trusted everywhere from Britain to Egypt. The denarius was a silver coin introduced in 211 BC, contained about 4.5 grams of pure silver. For centuries, it held its value because the Roman government maintained its purity. This created trust, and trust allowed Rome to fund its expansion, pay its soldiers, and build its infrastructure. But empires are expensive. Every generation, Rome's borders expanded. Every expansion required more soldiers, more forts, more roads, and eventually more money than Rome actually had. So, they did what every empire does when it spends more than it earns. They debased the currency. Emperor Nero, ruling from 54 to 68 AD, was the first to significantly reduce the silver content. He needed to fund his lavish lifestyle and expensive military campaigns. So, he ordered the mints to reduce the silver content from 100% to 90%. That extra 10% pure profit for the emperor. He could mint 11 coins with the silver that used to make 10. Same amount of silver, that's inflation. But 90% silver was still substantial. The real destruction came later. By the time Emperor Caracalla ruled in 211 AD, the denarius was down to 50% silver. By 265 AD, under Emperor Gallienus, it had fallen to just 5% silver. A coin that was once pure silver was now 95% worthless metal with a thin silver coating. Think about what that means. If you were a Roman soldier in 265 AD receiving your pay, you were being paid in coins worth 1/20th of what soldiers earned 2 centuries earlier. The government told you nothing had changed. The coins still said denarius, but the purchasing power had collapsed. Prices exploded. What cost 1 denarius in 200 AD cost 50 denarii by 300 AD. Farmers stopped selling food for coins and demanded barter instead. Soldiers refused to fight unless paid in gold or goods. Tax collectors couldn't collect taxes because the currency was worthless. The entire economic system seized up. And here's the key. This wasn't caused by foreign invasion. Rome's borders were still defended. This was self-inflicted. The Roman government destroyed its own currency to fund spending it couldn't afford. And when the currency died, the empire died with it. By 476 AD, the Western Roman Empire officially collapsed. Not because Germanic tribes were stronger, but because Rome couldn't pay its armies anymore. The currency had been debased into irrelevance, and everything built on that currency collapsed. The pattern: military expansion, unsustainable spending, currency debasement, inflation, loss of economic function, collapse. Rome proved the pattern, and every empire since has repeated it. Now let's jump forward 12 centuries. Spain, 1500s. The Spanish Empire is just beginning its golden age. Columbus has opened the New World, and Spain now controls the richest territories on Earth. In 1545, Spanish explorers discovered the Cerro Rico mountain in Potosí. It's the largest silver deposit ever discovered. For the next century, Potosí will produce nearly half of the world's silver. Spain becomes the richest, most powerful empire on Earth. The sun never sets on Spanish holdings. And then, exactly like Rome, they destroy themselves. Because there's a paradox with money. More money doesn't make you richer if everyone has more money. When Spain floods Europe with silver, prices rise. What cost 1 silver coin in 1500 costs 10 coins by 1600. Spain is importing so much silver that it's destroying the value of silver itself. That's inflation. And worse, Spain isn't producing anything. They're just extracting wealth and spending it on wars and luxury. By the late 1500s, Spain's kings are drowning in debt. King Philip II inherits 36 million ducats in debt. And when the debt becomes unpayable, he defaults. 1557, Philip II declares bankruptcy. This is the first sovereign default in modern history, but it's not the last. Spain defaults again in 1560, 1575, and 1596. 4 defaults in 40 years. Each default destroys trust. Lenders refuse to lend. Interest rates skyrocket. By the 1600s, Spain is in terminal decline. The colonies begin to break away. The pattern again: massive wealth influx, overspending, excessive borrowing, repeated defaults, collapse. Spain proved that even endless resources can't save an empire from fiscal mismanagement. Now we come to Britain, the empire that lasted longer and controlled more wealth than Rome or Spain combined. At its peak, the British Empire governed 458 million people. The sun never set on British rule, and the British pound sterling was the foundation of it all. For 2 centuries, the pound was the world's reserve currency. The gold standard anchored everything. 1 pound sterling could be exchanged for a fixed amount of gold. But then came World War I. In 1914, Britain's national debt exploded tenfold in 5 years. To fund the war, Britain had to borrow from everyone, including the United States. Critically, the war forced Britain off the gold standard in 1914. They had to print money. The pound became a fiat currency, backed by nothing but the government's promise. They tried to return to gold in 1925, but the pound was overvalued. Exports crashed. By 1931, Britain was forced off gold again permanently. Trust began to erode. But the real destruction came after World War II. Britain's national debt hit 270% of GDP. In 1944, the Bretton Woods Conference redesigned the global financial system. The British pound was officially replaced. The US dollar took its place as the world's primary reserve currency. What followed was a slow, humiliating decline. In 1949 and 1967, the pound was devalued twice. Each devaluation destroyed savings, crushed confidence, and signaled the end of its power. Meanwhile, the empire disintegrated. India gained independence in 1947. By the 1970s, Britain was on the verge of becoming a failed state. Inflation hit 25%. The empire that controlled a quarter of the earth had lost it all within 30 years. The pattern: war debt, currency debasement, loss of reserve status, devaluation, inflation, imperial collapse. Britain proved that even the strongest empire can fall within a single generation when its currency fails. Which brings us to now. The United States, the current empire, the current reserve currency. And every single warning sign that destroyed Rome, Spain, and Britain is flashing red. Just like Rome, just like Britain, the United States started spending more than it had. By 2000, debt was 5.6 trillion. Today, in 2025, it's over 36 trillion. And like Rome debasing the denarius, the United States is printing money. Since 2008, the Federal Reserve has created trillions of dollars from nothing. Quantitative easing. They told us it wouldn't cause inflation, that modern economics had solved the old problems. They were wrong. Inflation hit 9% in 2022. The dollar is being debased. And just like Britain, the United States is losing reserve currency status. In 2000, over 70% of global reserves were in dollars. Today, it's 58% and falling. The BRICS nations are actively building alternatives, trading in local currencies and new payment systems. The world is preparing for the dollar to lose its dominance, just like they prepared for the pound to fall. The most dangerous part: the United States has the same problem Rome had: military overextension. The US maintains nearly 800 military bases. The empire is expensive, and it's funded with debt and printed money. Just like Rome couldn't pay its legions with debased coins, the US is running out of time. The pattern is unmistakable. 7 stages repeated 4 times across 2,000 years. You cannot spend more than you earn forever. You cannot print prosperity. The pattern is absolute. We are in stage 5, inflation, heading rapidly towards stage 6, loss of confidence. What happens next? History gives us 3 possible outcomes. First, controlled decline, like Britain after 1945, painful but survivable. Second, chaotic collapse, Rome in the 5th century, complete systemic breakdown. Third, reset and restructure. A new currency system is established, replacing the old relatively quickly. The US is at the crossroads. The debt cannot be repaid with current spending. The only options are default, inflation, or restructuring. We are currently choosing inflation. When the Roman denarius collapsed, it affected the Roman Empire. When the dollar collapses, it affects the entire world. The chaos will be amplified globally.